Hey, what is up guys? So we're going to be doing a Darklord deck profile today. As you can tell by the title, this is a very balanced version of the deck. Now, of course, there are many different ways you could actually play Darklords. There's one that's focusing on pure power to attack your opponents, one that's pure defense, or rather control, and one that's focusing on just draw power. But of course, all of them lack a certain thing that causes the deck to actually not do well in the format. However, I've come up with this particular version that, I've been seeing different, threads on Reddit where people have actually been trying out really different builds of it, adding in or changing up the ratios of the Darklord cards. And as a result, they've actually come up with some very consistent variant of this, a more balanced one where everything is able to work very well together. So I'm actually just going to go off the deck profile right now and show you guys what I'm actually playing. So obviously we're playing 3 copies of Yugioh, a very necessary card here, and I think there's no need to explain too much about her. We are also going to be playing 3 Nastin. Sometimes I'm a bit on and off about this, going from 2 copies to 3 copies, and I figure this particular version, I'm going to be playing 3 copies of it. I'll explain why I'm playing 3 copies later on, because of a specific card. But one of the new cards I've actually bumped up to 3 is Darklord I. So Amdusk, I've been playing at 1 ever since the card came out in Destiny Soldiers, and I never thought I would actually bump it up, but it's actually a card that people have been suggesting that I bump up to 3 copies in this deck, simply because by discarding another Darklord with it, you could actually add back another Darklord from your graveyard, and although you're technically losing 1 card, you are actually able to gain back something more valuable, something more specific, and 3 copies working really amazingly here. Of course, we are also playing 3 copies of Ukabak together with Amdusk. Definitely has a certain amount of synergy to it, and it definitely makes it very nice here. But it's essentially the Foolish Burial for the deck, able to ditch any of your Darklord cards as you want. We're also playing 2 copies of Darklord Superbia. Yes, that's right, I've actually decreased it to 2 copies. I used to play Trade-In, and now I'm actually taking it out. I figure Superbia and Trade-In are just so specific, and because of that, they just actually make the deck worse, because you need 2 cards to actually accomplish something, 2 very specific cards. As a result, I've decided Superbia is better off being ditched off by Ukabak instead, and being revived, rather than, relying on me actually drawing into a Trade-In and Superbia in the same hand. So I've decided to actually change up the ratios to 2 here. So yeah, sorry about the ratios, about the glare there, but just move it over here. And as for the 1-offs, I'm playing 1 Tez. I figure for protection purposes, he's still worth playing at 1, just in case. Not to mention, all of these have different levels, and I figure he adds a bit of variety as well to it. And to end things off, we're playing Darklord Morningstar here as our last Darklord monster. He is just a nice card. You don't have to play it in the deck. You could easily take that out and put in something else in there, but I'm just putting it there because I still want to have a bit of fun, so Morningstar's not bad. But of course, with the whole balance in mind, I'm also adding in Ash Blossom as well. I figure Ash is definitely going to be very relevant this particular format, alongside Drone Lockbird and maybe even DD Crow. And I figure because of that, I gotta play at least some kind of hand trap. I mean, Darklords are inherently a control deck anyway, with all the Darklord traps, but of course adding in Ash will definitely help out in actually slowing down your opponent and allowing you to actually secure a nice victory, hopefully by your 2nd or 3rd turn. Most likely even in the 2nd turn, you're actually going to do well here, but the amount of disruptions in this deck is just really amazing. But that's it for the monsters. Let's move on to spells. Alright, so for spells, we're playing 3 copies of Darklord Contact. It's essentially the monster reborn of the deck. I don't think I need to explain too much of it. Same thing applies for Banishment. It's basically Rhoda of the deck, and It's just a really amazing card. Don't need to explain why I'm playing 3 copies of it. We're also playing 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Now, this card is definitely one of the more risky cards in the deck to play at 3, simply because we are playing Ash Blossoms, so sometimes it is kind of iffy for me. But Allure, I think 3 is... I don't know. I mean, you could easily drop it down to 2. You could even drop it down to 1 because of how consistent you can get with Banishment alone. But even so, I think 3 Ash, it's not going to really affect it too much. Still testing things out there, but Allure, I think 2 would be a safe bet for you guys if you are really not worth taking the risk here. But of course, we're also playing 3 Caught by the Grave. Our opponent can easily stop us, and we definitely have to maximize Caught by the Grave here, just to stop our opponent's hand traps as much as possible, so that we could actually get our plays off. We're also playing 2 copies of Pot of Desires. This is one of the reasons why I said I wanted to play 3 copies of Nastin and 3 copies of Amdusk. It's because with Pot of Desires, we're going to banish off at least one of them in this particular cost here. So because of that, I think I was playing 3 copies of Nastin and Amdusk were definitely the right move. And with Pot of Desires, ironically, I'm actually not using Pot of Desires to draw cards. I'm using it as bait. Most people don't really do anything, or most people don't really see Pot of Desires that way. As a result, when I play Pot of Desires, I actually just don't want my opponent to negate my banishment or my contact, and instead I just play Pot of Desires hoping that they'll negate that first, because I really don't care about losing it anyway. And it's not like you need the whole deck. If you're playing 3 copies of everything in your deck, then it doesn't matter if you're losing 1 or 2 copies of it. It's no big deal, because you're eventually going to draw into it anyway. So I think Pot of Desires is definitely worth it. 3 is a bit of an overkill, but 2 here is definitely nice enough that I can draw into it. We're also going to be incorporating Foolish Burial Goods. I think it accomplishes a lot here because it actually sends off the spells and traps. And I didn't realize this, but it actually works really amazingly, allowing you to actually abuse all these spells and traps multiple times. So definitely worth it. To end things off with spells, we're playing 1 copy of Reasoning. It's basically a free summon. There is no possible way our opponent will guess the level of the Darklord. I mean, you know, in game 1, they're not going to guess, but in game 2, they're going to either guess level 8 or 10, or potentially 3 for Ukabak. But then again, they'll never guess 6 because no one ever expects you to play Amdusk at 3 copies. They'll never really bother guessing 7 as well because, again, it's mostly they want to hit Yugioh, they want to hit Superbia, they want to hit Ukabak. Those are the main targets, but it's just a free summon, so you might as well just play Reasoning in there. Of course, for traps, we're also playing 2 copies of Rebellion, 2 copies of Enchantment, and 1 copy of Sanctified. I figure this is definitely a good ratio. You could definitely adjust it to your liking, but of course, with this particular build, we are playing Pot of Desires, so I wanted to play at least more than 1 copy of each of these. However, for this, I could actually drop it down to 1. It's completely up to your preference here, but you could adjust the ratios however way you want. But I figure Rebellion's the best one because it's able to just disrupt your opponents really easily. And also Enchantment does different things as well, being able to take your opponent's monsters, of course. So that's pretty much it for the main deck, so let's move on to the extra deck. With the extra deck, not really a big deal here, but we're playing AoE Witch's Apprentice, we're playing Dark Monsters, of course I'm playing that. Nightmare Griffin, I figure it's a really good card. You guys could easily put in a Boral Sword or Boral Load in there, but I figure Nightmare Griffin is a bit of a stun card that definitely works pretty well against your opponents, so I'm actually trying out Griffin here in this particular build. Also playing the Spider engine, so the number 77, number 84, and number 35. I figure it's a really nice thing to go for level 10, level 11, level 12, and you can just do so much on your opponents. And I figure you have the space anyway, so you might as well just go with it. We're also playing the Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Libe. Again, just being able to rank up from your trains is definitely just really nice here, which is why we're playing 3 copies of Gustav Max. We're also playing a Sky Palace Gangradai, playing number 81 here, and then for a few other random options, we're playing Coach King Giant Trainer. If you manage off Wait, hold on. This is not meant to be in the deck. I think this was meant to be Hope Harbinger. I don't know why I put it in there, but yeah, just imagine this is Hope Harbinger instead, or number 38. For level 7s, again, Naston, so you could go into Flay Metal, you could go for a Big Eye, and you could also go into a Draco Sack. But of course, ultimately, this deck doesn't really need the extra deck. It's more so being able to just go for your deck in general and just having this amazing control. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this deck. I think I will actually be doing a test hand video, so definitely stay tuned for that. Might even upload it right away after this as well. But in the meantime, hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you next time.
I fell where my demons dwell, my own little nightmare, I call it hell. Oh well, it's time to get back up, climbing and climbing. I'm done with this ride, is what I tell myself, so I could feel something